Great day, attractive thinker, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance. We trust that you've enjoyed your weekend and you're ready for another week of power. We're sharing gems and dropping jewels. I hope you have your attractive thinker notebook handy because this is what we talk about. This is what we do every week so that you can capture these gems. You do not want this rich content to hit the ground and you go about your week not knowing how to apply what you heard, not knowing how to reach your fullest potential or reach your goals that you have for this particular week. Dr. Toni Hatton here, your identity coach and get to the roots specialist. Welcome my co-host Tichet Bradshaw to another episode of Beyond the Break. Give yourself a fighting chance.
Happy Mindset Monday, everybody. Yep, you know it. We made it again and again. We get to do what we've never done, go where we've never gone, and have all that we deserve to have in this lifetime. It's such a great day to be alive.
Yes, it is. It is a fantastic and amazing day to be alive. I want you to think about that for a moment. It's incredible. No matter where you are around the world while you're listening to this message, if you can hear this message, it is a great day to be alive. Today, we're going to be talking about our external experiences and our internal worth and value. A lot of times, we can experience an external break. These breaks reveal the internal value. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we've all experienced a break at one point or another in our lives. So Tishet has experienced breaks. I have experienced breaks, heartbreaks, a break in a success, disappointments and frustrations, a break in the momentum that we had to reach our goals. But when we understand that just because something breaks doesn't mean that it has to break us. That's when we're able to overcome the challenge, the break. We're able to thrive through it without it totally destroying us. And I know what that feels like to feel like you're totally destroyed when you're not. It's a perception. When you're really in pain, that perception seems very real. Your perception seems very real. But when we understand that there's a brighter day, that we will smile again, that this is not the end, that it's not over, those thoughts are what helps us to get through the break. It helps us get through the challenge or the obstacle or the grief, whatever it is, whatever that break consisted of. If you have your, again, I want you to always have this guide, the Attractive Thinker Experience on Amazon, because no matter what page you flip to, you're going to find something that's going to keep you in momentum. It's going to keep you sharp. It's going to keep your mind targeted and focused no matter what you're going through so that you don't lose yourself. I always say we can lose a lot of things in this world, but when we've lost ourselves is when we've lost everything. So what does that mean? You are your greatest asset. As long as you hold on to you, you can make it through life. Life is a series of ups and downs, and we all are experiencing that. Don't ever think that you're experiencing something that nobody else has, or here's a big one, you're the only one. You're never the only one. You're never, but our minds can make us think that, our thought processes can make us think that we're the only one. You're never the only one. You have to silence those voices that are contrary to it being a great day to be alive to you. If you don't feel like it's a great day to be alive, you got to make some adjustments in the thought pattern. On page 463 in the Attractive Thinker Experience, the chapter is entitled, If It Has to Hurt, It Has to Count. And I want you to read that because today's topic is an external break reveals internal value. If something breaks you, if it has to hurt, it has to count for something, because what breaks is your heart, and that's where your greatest treasure is. That's where your worth and your value, that's where you find clarity and answers and solutions. That's where you connect to God with your heart. If something breaks your heart, you better believe that you're going to get some value out of it. It's going to reveal that value to you. An external break reveals internal value. A lot of times we don't know what we're made of, Tichet, until something happens, something breaks our heart, and then all of a sudden, all of this richness is laid out right before us. You know, sometimes when the heart breaks, you don't see the richness, but it's still there. You see the pain and the frustration. You see things from the past. You see memories. You see shame, fear, and guilt, and regret, and grief. You see that. It takes an attractive thinker eye to see the good, to see the value. Your heart is where your treasure is. And if anything breaks your heart, you better believe the treasure is right there for you to see it. It's being revealed. Whereas if your heart wasn't broken, you wouldn't even probably seek to know who you really are, or what you're really capable of, or what's really inside of your heart, or the power that you possess that you're not using that's lying dormant. If something didn't break your heart, you would never see. It's in the breaking that because when something breaks our heart, our first response is to do whatever we can to survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, we're discovering powers that we never knew we had. We're discovering courage and strength that we never knew we had. If we had not experienced a break, we wouldn't seek these things. What would be there to make us seek something that we can't even see? What would be there to make us dive deeper into ourselves to discover who we really are? Pain does have a purpose, and if you go back and listen to some of our other episodes, we talked about that. Pain does have a purpose. Pain produces something. If you're gonna hurt, you don't want to waste that pain. You want to access what that pain produced. Pain isn't just for pain's sake, like, we're just gonna hurt you. We're just gonna keep going around the world, and with everything you try to put your hand to, we're just gonna slap you on the back of the hand and tell you no. We're just gonna, when you get in the car, we're just gonna, cause things to happen. Or you go to the bank, we're just gonna cause things to happen. Or in your relationship and in your house, pain is not there to just hurt you for no reason. Pain has a purpose. A lot of times we can't control the things that we experience in our lives, but we can get something out of it. I always say if it has to hurt, it has to count. So there's a chapter in the book on that on page 463, and I want you to read that. This 726 page full color hardcover transformational experience was created just for you. I wanted you to have something that you could use so that you don't lose yourself in the course of managing the ways of life and trying to create a life for yourself and enjoy this abundant life that we're living. You now have a tool, a resource that will help you keep you. Talk to us today about an external break, not really shifting our internal value, but it reveals it.
Absolutely. And the key word here is reveal, right? When things break and it's exposing all that's within you. So if you think about a piggy bank or a vase or something like that, right? Well, let's just say a piggy bank because we're going to say you have some sort of currency inside of that piggy bank. If that piggy bank breaks and all the pieces of what you thought made the pig whole is everywhere, and all that's in it, the purpose of it, everything that's within that is within that pig is all spilled out. When we focus on being broken and not building based on the purpose and the power and all the things that comes with the break, right? When, like you said, we reveal what's in it. If you think more about the brokenness and you focus, that's like focusing on the pieces of the pig that was holding the value, that was holding the purpose, which was it to maintain the value, to protect the value, to make sure that we can save, the currency, right? And we always talk about on this show, currency being energy, time, and money, right? And your most valuable possession is also your heart. So when you think about when you went through a break and you think about how that connects to the piggy bank, the situation would be the broken pieces, right? The circumstances, the life you were used to that was holding um that you were used to seeing, because sometimes you don't know, like you said, Dr. Toni, you don't know what's in you until those pieces are exposed, right, through a break. You're going through life thinking your life was one thing. You were thinking your life was the pig. So now that situation or circumstance happened and those pieces have shattered, and now your life doesn't look the same, and you're sitting there focusing on what shattered and not the purpose and not the treasure, you're missing out on a major point in life where you get to take what's in you and build something different. See, everything can be replaced, right? We're not talking about people. With some people, but everything can be replaced. A house can be replaced, a car can be replaced, but you can't be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Your spirit, your heart is here for a purpose. You can't be replaced. This is why we say holding on to you is one of the most important things you have to do. Maintaining your peace should be your priority,
Mm-hmm.
because the moment that your peace goes out the door, you start focusing on the brokenness all around you and not the treasure.
Mm-hmm.
The broken pig does not take away from the coins that's within it. It doesn't take away from the dollar amount you've been pouring into it. Every time you learn something, you've been putting treasures in, the treasures in, the treasures in, the treasures in, day after day, night after night. The broken pig does not diminish the treasure that's within it, the value that's within it, or the purpose. So the purpose was to save the money. You saved the money. So instead of focusing on the brokenness that happened, focus on what the next move is. And that's the where do I put my mind and my heart when my life feels broken? Where do I put it? You put it on the treasure. How do you protect your treasure? How do you protect your heart in the midst when everything else around you broke? When the pig of your life has broken into complete pieces, shattered to beyond fixable, what do you do with your treasure? You don't throw your treasure away with the pig. You don't sit there and leave your treasure out in the open for everybody. You pick it up and you find a safer place to put it. And sometimes now it goes from that into something else more valuable, something that's stronger, that won't break every time somebody bump into it. Now you're understanding. Now you got a peak of the value that's within you. See, first it was an idea of what might have been in you, a couple coins and some dollars or what have you, but nobody really knows how much. We've been putting this thing in for decades, and now that thing is broken, but you got a sneak peek. So the good thing about being in a place of brokenness is that it gives you a sneak peek of what's really in you. It challenges your thoughts and beliefs. It makes you look at your habits. It makes you look at your thought life. It makes you change the way you've been moving, right? Because now you have to clean up the pieces. You have to separate the brokenness from the treasure. I am not my brokenness. I am the treasure that's within it. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I would misidentify myself with the pig instead of the treasure, I'm going to put it all together and it's just going to be a whole bunch of confusion. And you know what? You end up getting cut. You end up being in more pain because you mistook your treasure for the broken pieces of the pig. That life that you had its purpose, right? It did what it needed to do. And everything in your life, nothing is coincidental. Everything has a purpose, a reason, and a season in your life. But some things are not meant to be forever. Your treasure is forever. This is why you can't misidentify with the pig. That was not forever. Your treasure is forever. Who you are is forever, and it grows, it increases over time. Your treasure increases. The more you learn about it, the more you add value to it, it increases. So now you have to be careful about where you put your treasure. Where do you put your heart?
Mm.
Where's your deed to happiness? Where are you using your power? Where's your conversation? Where are you dividing your time, your money, and your energy? Where are you putting these things? Is it easily accessible? Can somebody come in and and it's broken? Is your
Mm,
life that easily broken that anybody can come in and tap on your heart and your heart is broken?
mm-hmm.
So we have to find something that's stronger,
Mm,
more valuable. And now, here's the thing: now that you got an idea of what's in it, you see that that pig wasn't too far with being not good enough to hold you. So
mm,
now you got to find something that can hold you at another level. Because now that you got a glimpse of who you are in this that was sitting in this pig, now you like, oh, that gives you motivation and courage to add more value to yourself. So when you're in the midst of broken, it'll allow you to see who you are enough to increase you in your spirit so that you keep adding that increase to your value. So you keep finding wisdom because you didn't even know that you knew how to fix something until it was broken. You didn't even know you could put this together until you had an emergency that caused you to have to put something together, and now you done learned the how to glue stuff, and now you done develop a passion for glue, and you done develop all this types of thing. Can you ever consider that one day you may look back at your broken stage of life, the time in life when the pig broke, and you look at what was exposed in you, and you feel a sense of gratitude for that broken season in your life because it showed you who you really are and how you needed to upgrade, how it was time for you to move in a different direction, how it was time for you to get something stronger or something that can really hold more currency, right? And so we have to be careful not to identify with the brokenness.
mm-hmm.
We are not the brokenness, we're the treasure within. That does not change because a situation didn't work out the way that it was supposed to. That does not change because somebody came in and took a hammer to you and broke your heart. So we have to understand our worth and our value comes from what we put into us, what we pour into ourselves. Our worth and value is built up based on that. Our worth and value does not come from other people. Because if you place your worth and value based on what somebody else said, based on what the system said, based on what the government said, based on, what all external things, if you put your hope, your value, your power and all that stuff based on that, then you're like a firecracker. Any little thing will set you off in the wrong direction. Or you're like, you ever seen one of them snaps where in 4th of July they have these little white snappers in the little paper, and you throw them down and they pop instantly, it just snaps open so anybody could take it, throw you down like you ain't nothing, and then pss, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's what it took to break you. So
Mm,
that means you have to
mm,
consider your value, that you don't allow yourself to be so open that you allow anybody who, just anybody, can come in, treat you like trash,
mm,
throw you to the ground, and you're done. There should be more to break you than that.
mm.
Now, don't get it twisted. There are some situations that could cause you to crumble to the ground, right? But
Mhm.
here's the thing: champions go down, but they don't stay down,
That's right.
right? We talked about that so many times.
Mhm.
When champions go down, they understand what just happened, they get themselves together, and they get back up with every ounce of themselves that they can pull up.
Mhm.
They pull up whatever strength that they can have left to stand up, right? Because they know in the end they're gonna win. They're not they're not feeling bad and beating up on themselves because they went down one time. That was one time,
Mhm.
right? But you have the situation that may have knocked you down and crumbled you. So in that moment, you have to recognize you are a champion, and I can win if I just get myself back up. If I just find every ounce of strength I can to pull myself back up. But what was exposed? in the midst of getting knocked down, your weakness was exposed. Your strengths was exposed while you were in the middle of the fight, but when you get knocked down, your weakness was exposed. Where were you most open? Right? So when you are down for the count and you feel like um there's no coming out of this, you have to first know you're a champion. You have to first know your worth and your value. You have to understand that this is not the end of you. And you have to be willing to take what was exposed and make something of it. What are you going to do with your weaknesses? What are you going to do with your strengths? These are the type of stuff that you have to figure out when you self-assess and you start getting to know yourself and loving yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
protect yourself. Wherever your weakness is, you have to find protection.
Mm.
If your weakness is self-esteem, then you need to have things in place where you're doing affirmations and or power walls to help you build up your self-esteem if your self-esteem is weakness,
Mm.
right? If your weakness is your self-esteem, you have to have things in place to help you in the midst of your weakness, right? And then still keep building, right? Because we're not just settling in weaknesses now,
Mm.
right? We're going to build into the point where our weaknesses now become strength. We don't give up because we can't.
Mm.
I can't. We can't right now, but we can. It's the matter of what you're willing to do, regardless of whether you think you can or you can't. You're right, right? And so we're willing to believe that we can if we try our hardest, and then we end up getting up and doing exactly what we once thought we can't do. I've seen people with no legs run a race.
Mm.
I've seen people with no arms paint. I've seen people who can't see play music. People who can't hear. I've seen people do wonders because all they had was the will.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did they have the will, they had the will and they had the understanding of their worth and value, that whatever was broken on them was not going to stop them from living a life of passion and desire. They wasn't going to let it stop you. We have to understand we are not disabled. We
Mm-hmm.
are not disabled. We have power. We have the ability. And as long as we have a will, we have a way. Dr. Toni, you said what happens when it breaks? We start going into survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
right? When we are going into survival mode, we can't be in, that is not the same as panic mode, right? When we're in panic mode, you start making decisions that's not like you're not calculating the decisions, right? Dr. Toni, you said in previous episodes, don't make decisions when you're hungry, when you're angry, when you're lonely, and when you're tired. Hey, I got that. Halt. Right? When
Yeah.
you're hungry, when you're angry, when you're lonely, and when you're tired, you don't make decisions because you want to make sure whenever you make a decision, it's coming from a sound mind.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into survival mode, there's some people who have been through break after break after break that if they break this time, they
Mm.
didn't develop this survival mode so much that they know what to do in the midst of a break. That's how we know what to do in the midst of a break because we done been through the break and the break and the break. We know how to survive and to make something out of nothing,
Mm.
right? Because we know what it takes to survive. But here's the thing, not only have we grown enough to know how to survive, we now know how to thrive, right? We are not just in survival mode. Survival is a temporary position, a temporary mindset till you get to a place where you're strong enough to build a life that is thriving.
Mm.
So we're not staying in survival mode. We're not staying in where we just trying to keep our head above water. At some point, we tread the waters, right? But at some point, you're going to have to swim.
Mm-hmm.
You tread the waters to stay afloat. If you're in the midst of deep waters, you tread the water. When we did the training for with the lifeguard in the pool, and we were being trained to go into 8 feet. Yes, I dive in the water. 4 foot 11, and I love to dive in deep water, in 8 foot of water, right? And have a nerve to be playing shark and Marco Polo in the deep waters, right? No bigger than a minute, but I got it, right? So when we in the pool, They taught us first how to survive in the deep water. So they taught us to tread. They taught us to do our hands and arms a certain way, and we had to do it for 45 minutes. And in that time, you got tired. So
Mm.
what do you do if you got tired? You had to know who you are in that moment and know what you're capable of. And so they taught us how to float certain ways, right? So they taught us how to move our arms and our legs a certain way that allow us to keep us above water longer than when our arms get tired. They taught us how to survive the waters long enough so that we can regain strength enough to swim,
Mm.
right? Where it's beyond from when our arms and legs get tired, because you get tired after a while. What do? You do the one thing you never think you want to do. You just gotta rest in it, and you gotta allow what's in you to come to the surface and float,
Mm.
right? So when you're floating, you never think, okay, this water is deep. The last thing I want to do is to offer my head to something that already has that seems like it's sucking down my body.
Mm.
But what happens is you got to relax in it and allow yourself to float. So
Mm.
you got to know what you are capable of in the survival moment.
Yes.
You got to know what to pack for survival moments. And when you go through enough breaks, you know what to keep in your stash. You'll keep your mental breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You'll keep that in hand. You'll keep your power wall. You'll keep the attractive thinker book in hand, because you understand that if something else should happen where I go through a broken season and broken stage, I know what to do to recover. But one thing I understand is that if life breaks me, it does not take away my value. Back to you, Dr. Toni.
Wow. You know, Tachet, you also said, where do you put your heart and mind when it's broken? And you talked about um, protecting and guarding our heart. If our heart is broken, I want you to think about this for a moment. If the heart is your treasure and it breaks, what's of value spills out all over the floor. Think about a jewelry box. If you were in a room full of people and your jewelry box, slid off of the table and all of your diamonds and pearls just went all over the floor, number one, you would be alarmed. Number two, you would go into survival mode, you would get down on the floor and try to capture the value, the gems, the treasure that spilled all over the floor. You would ask for help. You would look around the room. Now, prior to the jewelry box falling on the floor, you were comfortable with whoever was in the room. Now that your treasure is exposed, you're no longer comfortable with everyone having access to that. So when your heart breaks, you have to guard your heart, put up guards and set up boundaries because your heart is broken. The essence of you is exposed. Scripture says, guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of your life. Everything about you is in your heart. So if your heart breaks, you have to immediately set up boundaries. There are things that you used to do that you can no longer do. You can't be there for everybody like you used to. Your priorities are shifted. What was important is now on the back burner. What was on the back burner is now important. You have to make these shifts in order to survive this break. You said, I am not my brokenness, I am the treasure within it. That's a mental shift to shift because it helps us. If we think this thought in the middle of a break, it helps us to get through the break without really, literally, utterly breaking ourselves. We want to make sure we make it through the break because there's life on the other side of the break. There's life beyond the break. And we will never get to that other life beyond. Because, see, I view a break as prior to the break, there was one life that I was living. After the break, I was introduced to a whole other life that I knew nothing of. There was life beyond the break that I was unfamiliar with. I didn't know how to function in that life. I didn't know what to expect. It was unfamiliar. I didn't know the people there or the places there or the things there. My habits and routines were all shifted. My priorities and my goals were now changed. It was a whole new life. And we have to be open to that. We have to be aware of that. when we're dealing with a break. Now, in the initial stages of the break, we're human beings. You're going to cry. It's going to hurt. You're going to feel a certain way about yourself, because when the heart breaks, don't think that the only thing inside of your heart is your treasure. Your pain is there, your memories are there, your trauma is there, your fears are there. A whole lot is going to come up when your heart breaks. You just need to know how to deal with it so that it does not deal with you
Mhm.
in the midst of a break. You know, you in the midst of a break, you have to when the fear is spilled all over the place because the heart broke, you have to not allow that fear to consume you. And now you become a fearful person when at first you weren't fearful. A lot of things that you wanted to forget, they come up. Now you're reminded of them, and you have to put them back in their proper perspectives so that they don't consume you, because you're now vulnerable, because your heart is broken. So when you're vulnerable, think about this for a moment. You can't have everybody and everything around you when you're vulnerable, because if your heart is open and your treasure is exposed, who's to say people won't be picking and plucking at it? It
Mhm.
takes something of value that you need. When your heart is broken, you have to readjust who you trust and who you don't trust, just so that you can guard your heart and keep it protected while it heals through this break. I want you to think about that, attractive thinker, because an external break reveals your internal value. Your worth is going to be exposed. Although the worth is exposed, don't let your worth be challenged or redefined, because your value is intact. Your worth is intact. Just because you go through something doesn't mean you're less of a person. Just because you're going through something doesn't mean you're not worthy. I used to think that. I'm like, why is this happening to me? Why? I had good intentions. I was trying to do the right thing. I thought I was going to reach this goal. I thought this was it. So why didn't it happen? And not only why didn't it happen, why did it end up this way? Why was this the end result? And I would internalize it. Write that word down in your attractive thinker notebook. Internalizing. When external things happen, why do we internalize it? It happened externally, not internally. But the first thing we do is and go straight to our worth and let our worth fluctuate with what's happening outside of us. If things are going well outside of us, then our worth is, at a high level. As soon as something goes on that frustrates us, disappoints us, or breaks our heart, we adjust our worth meter. We should not do that, because our worth is not dictated upon what's going on outside of us. Our worth is not determined by, it's not connected to, it's not equivalent to, the external does not have access to our internal value. Who can go and adjust the knob on our internal value and say, "Oh, you're unworthy. Let me turn your value and your worth down." Who can do that? You were born worthy. That's why you're here. People say, "Well, I don't feel worthy." Aren't you here? Tisha said, "It's a great day to be alive." Are you still breathing? You're breathing the same air that I'm breathing. If you think I'm worthy, why aren't you? We're breathing the same air, feeling the same sunshine, drinking the same water, walking on the same earth. That revelation came to me in a different way this weekend. Was like, why do we feel unworthy at certain times in our lives? Unworthy to be here, unworthy to be blessed, unworthy to experience your goals, unworthy to experience life in it more abundantly, unworthy to reach a goal, accomplish something, do something never before done in your bloodline, unworthy to carve a new generational path. Why do we feel unworthy to be here when the whole time we're feeling unworthy, we're here? You're already here. So you shouldn't try to assess whether you deserve to be here or not. Aren't you here? Just
Mhm.
you being here is enough to let you know that you deserve to be here. You didn't put yourself here, you didn't bring yourself here. Whatever energy, power, source that brought you here thought you were worthy enough to be here. And that's where you get your worth and your value, not from external situations and circumstances, because they're going to fluctuate. Today, your external circumstances could be at one level. Tomorrow, they could be something totally different. So, what are you going to say? I'm worthy today and not worthy tomorrow? Once you stabilize your value and your internal value and your worth, you're better able to handle things externally. Because now when things happen, you're not assessing how worthy you are. Now when things happen, because you know it doesn't fluctuate your worth, you're able to create a positive outcome from it because you know who you are. Now that you know your value doesn't decrease just because things are happening around you, you understand that you have the power to shape this situation and circumstance in a way that benefits you. You might say, well, Dr. Toni, I wanted to change the situation or the outcome. I wish it had never happened. I couldn't change it. Yes, there are certain things that we can't change. But like you said, Tichet, you said earlier, if you focus more on the break than the value you receive from it, and I wrote down, you'll miss an opportunity to discover the value and the power of your heart. If you see, it's your focus. What are you going to focus more on? The break and what broke you, or what the break produced, what it
Mm-hmm.
revealed
Mm-hmm.
to you? It's a choice. You either focus on the fact and you sit there and you cry for years, and you reduce your value, you reduce your worth for years over the break, and the whole time you're missing the value that it produced. You're missing the power that you discovered that you can use going forward. At first you didn't even know you had power. At first you didn't even know you could change circumstances. At first, you didn't even know you were chosen. Now that you know, you can use that going forward for the rest of your life. But if your focus is on the break and you allow the break to minimize your worth and your value and reduce you to not having a meaning in life, then you'll never discover what the break produced, what it revealed to you. The break revealed something to you that you never knew before. And you need that knowing, you need that knowledge going forward. Because if it's meant for you to know the value of your heart and what's actually in it and your power, if you didn't get it in this break, you're going to have to go through another break. You may experience another break if the intent is for you to get this value and understand your worth. I want you to think about that. So if your heart is broken, I want you to understand that you're human. That's first of all. Don't shame yourself for crying. Don't shame yourself for things you said you shouldn't have said. Don't shame yourself for isolating yourself or saying, I'm not going to create my goals no more. I'm not going to write this book or start this business, or I'm not going to do this. I'm not moving, or I'm not going to get married now, or I'm not going to, work on this or that or the other. Don't shame yourself for that. That was a period. That was a season of the break. That was the initial shock of the break. Now that you're in attractive thinker mode and you know who you are, you stand up within yourself and you say, I don't know how I'm going to get through this break, but I'm going to start right here today, just one moment at a time. When I was going through my break, I had to reduce my life down, all the way down to the moment. I couldn't think ahead for tomorrow because it was too painful for me, because my mind was racing. It was creating too many scenarios. I couldn't even think hours ahead because I didn't know what those hours they held. And I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And it was too painful to try and anticipate what that would be. It was too painful to think that I could have faith for something and my faith not produce the result that I was looking for. That was too painful to consider that. So I had to reduce my life to the moment and stay in the moment and guard and protect my energy and guard and protect my heart. I couldn't answer everybody's phone call. And yes, people were mad. People will get upset with you for not answering your phone, and they'll try to reach you through other people. But we have people in our lives that we can put in place that will guard our hearts with us, will help us guard our heart. And they'll filter phone calls for you. They'll answer the phone call or filter emails and only let you see the ones that are beneficial to you in this vulnerable state. This is how you handle yourself in the middle of a heartbreak. This is how you handle and nurture your mind and love on yourself in the middle of a heartbreak. So after you get yourself together and you remember who you are, you set up these boundaries and you allow the people that you put in place to protect and guard you. Don't say, well, oh, well, okay, they called 10 times. Let me just go ahead and talk to them. Maybe you don't need to. And maybe you need to be okay with that. Maybe during this season of breaking, you need to be nurtured and loved and poured into instead of you pouring out into others. See, only you can assess these areas because it's your heart and it's your treasure. And only you know what you're going through and what you're feeling on the inside. So when you set up these boundaries, they're to protect you so that you come through this break more powerful than you were when you went into it. Tichet, you said you have to know what you're capable of when you're in survival mode. That changes the game. If you're in survival mode, that means something has happened that caused all of your being to be on alert. And if you're in survival mode, when you don't know what you're capable of, you'll take the victim side versus the victor side. You'll feel like everything is happening to you versus you having the power to happen to it. See, I trust that you're capturing these gems because if you don't need them now, you're going to need them going forward. You're going to need them at one point or time in your life. These gems and jewels have a lasting effect. They don't have an expiration date. They are valuable now and they will be valuable then later on. So just capture them in your attractive thinker notebook and consider the fact that these external breaks that we experience in our lives, they reveal our internal treasure. Tichet, give us some lasting comments and tell our audience how they can get in touch with you, the visual encourager.
Absolutely. One of the things that I wanted to tell people, another thing that the break produces, right? It produces boldness and courage that you might have not had before. Because have you ever been so angry that you threw out the ability to be a people pleaser? And you said, you know what? I don't care who's mad at me. I have to fix myself first.
Mm-hmm.
I have to save myself first. And so you put aside other people's expectations. You put aside all the other systems because now you're angry enough and bold enough
Mm.
to that you know that this is not okay. I'm not going to stay in this position. So if I have to either I have to take a bold position and stand and walk away from some things, or I play victim and keep standing this break. And standing this break is not the thing that I want to do. Right. And so when we experience a break, first and foremost, when we are changing from one place to another or one person to a higher self, a break is going to happen. A break happens to a lot of us, right? It's not like you said, Dr. Toni, in the beginning, it's not just you. It
Mm.
is a lot of us, and how we handle it matters, right? If you think of being a flower, right? You started out as a seed on a shelf with everybody else. You was in the same bag with a whole bunch of other seeds. Your heart was hardened. You didn't really have the idea of what you had to go through to get to the rose. You was
Mm-hmm.
just a seed in the bag. But then your potential was being introduced and you came out of the bag and then was planted in a place of darkness,
Mm.
in a place under fertilizer. You were planted and then you had to be watered and nurtured under something you didn't understand. If I'm supposed to go from a seed to a flower. What am I doing here in the dirt? And then your shell has to crack open. And so now you feel like you don't even look the same anymore. I'm not even the same shape. What I thought I knew about myself has cracked open. And now where I thought I was being um, thrusted up and getting out of the dirt, I start growing down first, not realizing that you had to have roots in who you are. You had to grow roots first so that when you grow up out the dirt, you're not just being knocked over by any little wind that wants to come by. That every time a bird come and land on you, you're not falling over, right? And so you go through all the cracking stages and the being in fertilizer stages, the dark stages, the wet stages, the stuck stages. You go through many stages after the brokenness in order for you to get to a place where you say, okay, I'm now budding my season, things are starting to look good, right? And when things are starting to look good, and this is for the people who are coming out of the break, that just went through a break, coming out of the break and now living beyond the break. You have budded in your season. I'm telling you that now it's time to bloom, right? And so each of us, we are in different stages, but all of us have something in common. We went through a humbling stage of being a seed to a stage of when everything had to shift and shape. Even if you went from being a child to adult, you had to break some things.
Mm-hmm.
You had to break some habits of a child in order to accept being an adult. You had
Mm-hmm.
to break some routines and things like that in order to maintain a lifestyle as an adult. You can't have the same routines you had as a child. But there's
Mm-hmm.
some things as a child that you taking with you, like hygiene. You take that with you. So you have to know in the midst of the break what you take with you and what you don't. You don't take the brokenness, you keep the treasure. You
Yes.
keep the lessons and the blessings. That's it,
Yes.
right? And so no matter what you go through, what's the lesson and what's the blessing? That's what you look for first. You
Mm-hmm.
start separating the pieces. What's the lessons and what's the blessings? What do I throw away and what do I keep? Because you don't take everything with you, right? When the seed breaks, you don't see the shell in the rose. You don't see it in the rose. You see all this types of petals and greenery and things going on in the rose, but you don't see the original shell. The original shell got left underneath. It transformed underneath the ground. So whatever happened in the midst of the dirt, in the midst of the fertilizer, whatever happened in that mess, in that pit, made it so you don't look the same when you come out.
Mm.
So when you come out and you start budding, you might not, and if you're in the break, you might say, I might not look like what was on the box, what was on the top of the bag that said rose. There was a bag that said rose. So on the bag, when you were a seed, on front of the bag, it had the word rose and a picture of what you were supposed to be, your purpose, right? Your purpose, your plan, what you intend to make out for your life. When they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be this. You have all that on the bag, right? But nobody tells you what you have to go through to transition from when you first had the vision to who you are after you're living out the vision, right? And so when what happens when you go down in the dirt is the most important part. So what happens in the break is what's important.
Mm.
When you go through the break, that's where the most transformation takes place,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's where you transition the most. So you can't judge your breaking season. You
Mm.
can't judge while you're in the break because you haven't even begun to see how you'll look when you come out the dirt. You're
Mm-hmm.
still being rooted. That is not the time to judge whether you're a good flower or not.
Mm-mm.
That is not the time to say, oh, I'm not a flower anymore because I done made it somehow in this dark and this dirt and all this crap going on and this rain and this wet and all this stuff and all these tears.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the time to judge who you are. You just have to believe in your purpose and believe in who you are. You
Yeah.
have to believe that somewhere in there is that rose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in the midst of what's going on down in that dirt is still that rose. So everything that was happening while you were stuck in that crack,
Mm.
was necessary for you to go up there and have a sustainable life as a rose.
Mm.
And then when you started to break ground, when you started to come up out, and now you see that's not the time to keep remembering the fact that you cracked and hold on to the crack. That's the time to see your growth. That is the time to look at yourself and say, I'm not where I used to be, and I'm not where I saw on the package, but thank God I'm out of this. I'm out of this dirt. I can see, I can see a light ahead of this tunnel. You start assessing where you are. You start taking in all that happened as a lesson or a blessing. You don't regret what happened in the dirt no more, because now you have an understanding it was necessary so that I could have a sustainable life as a rose, and I could live my life in full. Because a lot of the breaks that we went through is so that you can develop your full potential and have a sustainable life, living in that power from that vision that you had when you was just a seed.
Mm. Mm.
That's why you had to go through some of that stuff. Them people broke up with you because that wasn't the person you needed to take with you in your new life.
Mm.
That person left you because he didn't see your value. Well, if he don't see your value now, when you have all of this stuff going on and it's good, you want somebody that's going to take care of you, that's going to take care of your value, that's going to understand and cherish and nourish you. You don't want somebody that's going to break you when you just finished building up all of this value. You don't want somebody that's just going to come and pluck your feathers and just treat you like trash and go. You want somebody that's going to understand your worth and your value, but you have to get to the point where you understand your worth and your value first.
Mm-hmm.
You got to allow yourself to go through your process. Whether you in the break, going in the break, or coming out of the break, you have to understand your process, and your process is worthy. Your process is worthy because you went from being one thing, having an idea of what that is, to going through the processes of changing and becoming the idea of the vision from the beginning, to now being able to see the vision clear. And so you at the point to not letting anything stop you, to being a vision, to living out the vision. And that whole process was necessary because within that process you learned who you were, what you are capable of doing. You learned who you are not. You learned what you wanted, what you don't want. You've learned so much about yourself. You learned about your strengths and your weakness. You learned everything about yourself that you was going to need to hold you sustainable when you become a rose. You needed all of that. It hurt, yes. You lost some things, yes. They walked out on you, yes. You got fired, yeah. They was talking about how they fired Oprah from the TV station. She was a news anchor. They fired her at, what was she, 28?
Mm. It's
Look
such
at
a
her now.
yeah.
They had to fire her.
Mm.
It was necessary for her transition, for her growth.
Yes.
She had to go through that feeling of inadequacy, or that feeling of feeling broken and not knowing what she was going to do at that moment. She had to go through, I'm sure she had, some doubts that ran through her head. I'm sure she's had to deal with some negative self-talk, but she didn't let none of that stop her, because that negative self-talk did not become a habit. And that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that in the midst of brokenness, negative self-talk, that negative thinking, that limited belief system does not become a part of us along the way. You
Mm-hmm.
got to pluck off those limiting beliefs, like a bird has to pluck off his feathers, like an eagle has to pluck off his feathers. You have to pluck off those limiting beliefs. You have to pluck off the fears. You have to pluck off the things, the trauma that has been attached to you since you were a child. You got to pluck those things off in order for you to soar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing: you have been purposed to soar since birth.
Mm.
Now, there's some things that you didn't know you could do until you got knocked off that ledge.
Mm.
You didn't know you could fly. Would you have jumped as long as that ledge was comfortable? So, some of us, we had to get knocked off the ledge.
Mm.
That's what we call the break. But the universe and God knew we were ready for it. Why? Because he knew the worth that was in us and the value that's in us. And that's what we got to do in this moment. We have to, you said, stabilize our internal worth. We got to make a habit of doing that. Even if you are out of the break, you still want to make sure that your life choice is to keep making sure you're stabilizing your worth with every growth, because you're going to keep going through new levels and new seasons. And you're going to need to make sure that no matter what season you in, you are stabilized. Just like when you look at a tree, no matter what, the branches, the foundation is still there. Winter season, the tree, the whole tree, the root, the branch, all of that is still there. The
Mm-hmm.
leaves can change orange, green, red, pink, white, go from flowers to regular leaves. And the base, the foundation of it is still there. You have to literally get something sharp to knock it down because of how rooted that tree is. And you realize how strong you are in the midst of the break. That's a good revelation right there.
Yes, it is.
We have a show that we said, I don't want to be this strong. But when you recognize your full purpose and potential, you'll take the strength.
Yes.
You'll do whatever you got to do necessary. But one thing you can't do is give up.
Yeah.
So you'll make sure your internal worth and value is intact at all times. Your peace is your priority. Your
Yeah.
heart is worthy of your highest protection.
Mm-hmm.
Holding your spirit to high value. Understanding that you can't let any and everybody handle you.
Mm. Mm.
You can't let any and everybody into in your jar. You can't let everybody in. There's some people who don't even care what's in it. They just want to steal whatever it is you got.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that if you got to go in there, it's an investment and it's worth it. If you have to expose yourself, it's worth it. That's what we do on Beyond the Break. We expose ourselves when it's an investment because we know it's worth it. We know that exposing ourselves in here is not going to take away from us
Mm-hmm.
because we understand our worth and value while doing so.
Yes.
We already have the lessons and the blessings, and we're sharing the gems that we learned along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take away from us. We're not depreciating by sharing what's inside of us. To
Mm-hmm.
you, the attractive thinkers and visionaries, we're not depreciating from that. We are increasing in value because we're learning what's in us by showing you our value. We're learning. We go on this show and we're seeing what we know by pouring out. Sometimes you don't know what you know until it's time to help somebody else,
That's right.
until it's time to teach it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when you teach it, when you learn it, you should put yourself in a position to teach it. Learn it and teach it. Learn it and teach it, because when you start teaching it, that's how you know you really got it in you. When it's time to pour out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we have things in place that help us to stabilize our worth and value. Dr. Toni has her new book. I have my website. I have my power wall. We have different things on our wall, that trigger walls and power walls, different statements, affirmations,
Mm-hmm.
mental breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have attractive thinker tools that we use every single day to help us stabilize
Yes.
our worth and value so that it's not so easily accessible,
Mm-hmm.
it's protected, it's nourished, it's always in growth,
Yeah.
um, and we protect it because we understand that our heart is our greatest treasure. Our heart and our spirit, that's our greatest treasure. So we protect it and we make sure that if we have to expose our heart, it's going to be worth it in the end. Like Dr. Toni said, if we got to go through it, we're going to make it count.
Yes.
If you break my heart, I'm going to make it count.
My God.
It's going to account for something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go through all of that and then quit right in the midst of coming up out of that dirt.
Yes. That's right.
I want to see the whole thing through. What was this brokenness for?
Mm.
And so we have to have tools in place at all times. This is not just okay, I got a tool in place just for this situation, but when I'm done this situation, I can go back to the old ways. No, this is a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lifestyle of maintaining our worth and our value, a lifestyle of peace, a lifestyle of joy, a lifestyle of learning and growth and abundance. We have a lifestyle of this now, of breakfast, lunch, and dinner with mental tools.
Yes.
And so when you have these tools in place, you end up seeing that when you go through a break, you already have your survival kit.
Yes.
So you don't have to stay in survival mode, struggling and fighting all the time and getting tired. We
Mm-hmm.
have our survival kit. So one of my survival tools is my website. You can find me at www.visualencouragement.com. We provide mental support for movers and shakers, for trailblazers, pathfinders, and groundbreakers. All you visionaries who desire to move mountains but need help lifting the heaviness so that you can create a new vision for yourself. Go to my contact us page, put in your information, let me know how I can uplift you, enlighten you, and encourage you so you can live the life of fulfillment beyond the break. You can go on my power wall. Feel free to use my power wall if you need some mental tools to help you with affirmation, to help you have statements that can make sure you stay ignited throughout the day. Again, my website is www.visualencouragement.com. See you soon.
Awesome. Attractive thinkers and visual encouragers around the world. We encourage you to click that like button if this message resonated with you and helped you step into your power and create another fantastic and amazing week. We want you to share. Click that share button and share it with your circle of influence because if it helped you, it will help others. Comment, leave a comment. Let us know what your gems were that you captured from this message. Let us know what topics you would like to hear us discuss. We want to hear from you. We are so excited and thank you so much for your support. Dr. Toni Hatton here, your identity coach and get to the root specialist at theattractivethinker.guru. Remember to visit the website. We have some free resources there for you for mental healing, for mental strength, and mindset maintenance while you're writing your books and launching your business ideas. Beyond the break is about giving yourself. We want to support you in giving yourself a fighting chance. Giving yourself a fighting chance. Today's message was an external break reveals internal value. And I'm going to share this short story with you. And I want you to think about this as you go move about your week. There was a story last week that I heard. It was on TV as I was passing through the living room, and it stopped me in my tracks. This man had gone overboard on a cruise ship. His family was waiting for him to come back from the restroom. He never returned. They found out that he went overboard on the cruise ship. This man was treading water for 15 hours with no flotation device. They found him treading water for 15 hours with no flotation device. Beyond the break is about giving yourself a fighting chance. A break, an external break, meaning him going overboard, revealed his internal value. He had the
Mm,
capacity. He had the capacity to tread water for 15 hours. I guarantee you he would never have taken the challenge. I guarantee you he never would have tried to do it. But the break called for that value to be revealed in him and for people to see it. One of the young men who was telling the story said we had never seen anything like it. It's not common to tread water out in the ocean for 15 hours with no flotation device. You don't know what you're made of.
mm,
It's not
mm,
up to
mm,
you to determine your value because you didn't create you. You don't know what you're made of. When you find yourself in a break, nurture yourself. Do an assessment. Start looking around. Your heart is open now. What's in there? What's in there that you can use? Start discovering yourself and you'll discover your highest potential. You'll discover your worth, your real worth, and your value and your power. You'll discover some things that you can use going forward because this break was actually a preparation for life going forward. So gather up your gems and your tools. Don't leave them in the life that you just stepped out of. You're going to need them in the life that you're moving into. I want you to think about that. You always hear us say, our life's work, that's to make your life better. Remember, it is not what you're going through, it's how you're viewing it. Think attractively. We'll see you soon.